These are 8 classic Mercedes-Benz models that haven't just survived the test of time, they've proven that the best engineering never really goes out of style. And the best part, most of them are still within reach for everyday enthusiasts. There was a time when Mercedes-Benz didn't just mean luxury. It meant permanence. It meant you bought a car once and it ran for decades. These days, the three-pointed star carries a different reputation: complex electronics, expensive repairs, depreciation that hits like a freight train the moment you leave the lot. But rewind the clock to the era between the mid-1960s and late 1990s, and you find a Mercedes-Benz that was building some of the most bulletproof automobiles ever to roll off a production line, many of them assembled at the legendary Sindelfingen plant in Baden-Württemberg. Cars that were over-engineered on purpose. Cars that taxi drivers in Africa and the Middle East are still using today. The classic Mercedes market sits at an average price of roughly $56,000 across all models, but that number is wildly misleading. Some of the best classics the brand ever made can be had for well under $20,000, while others have crossed the $1 million threshold. The key is knowing which ones still represent genuine value. 8 classic Mercedes models, ordered from the most accessible to the most aspirational, with real prices, real years, and honest assessments of what you're getting into. First up, the W123, built from 1977 to 1985 with an average price just under $12,000. If you had to pick one single car that defines what Mercedes-Benz means to the world, this is it. The W123 isn't flashy. It isn't fast. What it is the single most archetypal Mercedes sedan ever made, and one of the few truly bulletproof classics you can still buy without a second mortgage. 2.7 million of these rolled off the line over a 9-year production run. That's not a typo. 2.7 million. Of those, about 2.37 million were sedans, just under 200,000 were estates, and fewer than 100,000 were coupes. The vast majority ran on inline 4, inline 5, or inline 6 engines, and the diesel versions in particular became legendary for their refusal to die. Specifically, the OM617, Mercedes' 5-cylinder turbo diesel that mechanics still describe as one of the most indestructible engines ever put into a passenger car. That engine isn't just reliable in the abstract sense. It's the reason W123 diesels are still working as taxis in parts of the world where the cars are older than the drivers. Today, a solid W123 sedan averages around 12 grand. Patient buyers who know what they're looking at can find decent examples in the $10,000 to $15,000 range. The coupes command more. They were pricier when new, and they're pricier now. Stumble across one of the rare AMG modified cars, which Mercedes offered as factory customized upgrades at the time, and you're looking at serious collector money. The highest recorded sale for a W123 was $138,000 for a 1979 500 TEAMG estate that crossed the block in June of 2024. But here's the beauty of the W123. You don't need the AMG. You don't need the coupe. A well-bought 6-cylinder sedan will give you years of enjoyable, largely fault-free motoring. It's one of the simplest executive classics on the market, and in an age of overcomplicated everything, that simplicity is worth its weight in gold. Next, the W126 S-Class, built from 1980 to 1991, averaging $12,000 to $25,000. This is the car that enthusiasts and Mercedes technicians alike call the last true Mercedes-Benz. That's a bold claim, but spend 5 minutes talking to anyone who's worked on these and they'll back it up without hesitation. The W126 was the second generation S-Class, and it was a masterpiece of purposeful engineering. It pioneered features we take for granted today: traction control, the supplemental restraint system that paired seatbelt pretensioners with front airbags. Its side rub strips, those ribbed plastic protectors running along the doors, were initially criticized, but eventually became so iconic they earned their own nickname, Sacco boards, after chief designer Bruno Sacco. What's less often mentioned is that Sacco's philosophy, he called it vertical affinity and horizontal homogeneity, was itself shaped by his predecessor, Friedrich Geiger, the head of styling, who built the design language Sacco would refine. That lineage runs directly through the W26. More than 818,000 of these S-Class sedans were delivered worldwide, but only a minority have survived in good condition. The ones that have are deeply rewarding to own. As former Mercedes master technician Jim B. put it, compared to the W140 after it, the W126 was always a much better car mechanically. There's less to go wrong, and they're easier to work on and fix. Pricing is reasonable. A drivable 300 SE sedan might start around $8,000 to $12,000. Well-kept examples with 80 to 120,000 miles typically fall in the 12 to 25 grand range. Concours quality late model 560 SELs top out around 48,000. The real collector market, though, lives in the coupes. The highest recorded W126 sale was $720,000 for a 1987 560 SECA MG 6.0 wide body. For most buyers, a clean W126 sedan under 20 grand is one of the most rewarding ways to experience what Mercedes-Benz used to mean. Third on the list, the R129 SL, built from 1989 to 2002, with good examples running $20,000 to $50,000. The R129 replaced the legendary R107, which is no small task. It did so by being unmistakably modern for its time, introducing an automatic roll bar system, an electro-hydraulic soft top, and a level of refinement that pushed the SL further into grand touring territory. These cars represented the accessible edge of Mercedes technology at the turn of the millennium. A 2002 SL 600 in good condition is valued at roughly $23,000 today, which makes the R129 generation the most accessible way into a V8 or V12 Mercedes Roadster. The SL class itself holds the longest continuous production history of any Mercedes model, launched in 1954 and running ever since. The R129 is more complex than the R107 it replaced, so maintenance costs are higher and you need to be more careful about deferred repairs. A well-sorted example, though, offers a driving experience that bridges the gap between classic and modern in a way few cars can. It's got the presence and character of an older car with enough technology to feel genuinely capable on a long highway run. Fourth, the W460 G-Wagon, built from 1979 to 1991, ranging from $25,000 to $70,000. Before the G-Class became a status symbol parked outside nightclubs and Instagram-famous brunch spots, it was something entirely different. A military vehicle adapted for civilian use, developed in partnership with Austrian manufacturer Steyr Daimler Puch. The project has an interesting political anecdote. The Shah of Iran, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, was instrumental in commissioning the original G-Wagon concept in the mid-1970s, wanting a capable military vehicle built on Mercedes mechanicals. That royal patronage helped get the program off the ground before the Shah's government fell, and by the time the W460 reached production, it had taken on a life of its own. The W460 came in short and long wheelbases, with a convertible option on the short version and a range of variants stretching from the gasoline-powered 200 GE to the 280 GE Cabriolet. And here is an interesting detail. The G-Wagon's utilitarian proportions, 7 inches taller, 3 inches shorter, and narrower than the Range Rover, actually gave Land Rover the confidence to greenlight the Discovery. The existence of the G-Wagon proved there was a market for a more rugged, upright SUV. For the purist, the W460 represents the G-Wagon in its most honest form. No diamond-stitched leather here. Instead, you get plaid cloth seats, manual windows, and locking differentials operated by glorious mechanical levers. These were machines built for the chaotic terrain of the non-tarmac world. Unrestored examples can still be found under $20,000, but fully restored vehicles with documented history regularly reach $50,000 to $70,000, especially those with rare factory options or military service records. The highest recorded sale was $86,000 for a 1989 200 GE convertible in June 2025. One word of caution: there is a persistent myth that W460s are cheap to maintain because they are mechanically simple. They are simple, yes, but parts scarcity and specialized labor drive up costs, especially outside Europe. Fifth, the R107 SL, built from 1971 to 1989, averaging around $26,000. 18 years. That's how long Mercedes kept the R107 in production, making it the second longest production run in Mercedes history, behind only the G-Class. In that time, 237,287 units were built, and 2/3 of them went to the United States. The R107 became the definitive personal luxury car of an entire generation. The car parked in the driveways of doctors, lawyers, executives, and old money from Greenwich to Beverly Hills. It was, quite literally, the car that taught America what Mercedes-Benz meant. The development team internally called the prototype the Panzer Wagon, the tank, because they'd mated the midsize W1114 chassis to the V8 engines from the S-Class. The name stuck throughout development, and honestly, it suits the finished product. These are substantial, solid, reassuring machines. On the market today, 280 SLs average about $19,000, 450 SLs around $16,000, and 500s can reach $88,000 on average. The sweet spot for American buyers is the 560 SL, the most refined mechanical package, the best performance of any U.S. market, R107. A clean, well-documented 560 SL for $30,000 to $45,000 is one of the best propositions in the entire classic car market right now. All R107 SLs tracked by Hagerty have appreciated an average of 15% over the past 5 years. Sixth, the W124 E-Class, built from 1986 to 1997, averaging just over $27,000. Automotive journalists have called this the best car of the past 35 years, and it's not hard to see why. The W124 was the first Mercedes to officially carry the E-Class name, though that designation didn't actually arrive until 1993, 7 years into its production life. As a daily driver, the W124 strikes an extraordinary balance, luxurious enough to feel special, robust enough to handle real-world commuting, and simple enough that a home mechanic with factory manuals can handle most maintenance. It's the ideal first classic for someone who wants to actually drive their car, not just trailer it to shows. And then there's the special one, the E500, built in collaboration with Porsche and actually hand-assembled at Porsche's Zuffenhausen plant in Stuttgart. It featured a wider track, lowered suspension, flared wheel arches, and a naturally aspirated 5.0-liter M119 V8, the same engine family that powered the SLO 600's stablemate, producing 322 horsepower. 322 horsepower in a hand-built luxury sedan from the early 90s. That Porsche connection alone makes it a remarkable piece of automotive history. And the M119's combination of refinement and muscle is a big reason why E500 values have held so firmly. Values have stayed remarkably consistent over the past 5 years, making the W124 a wallet-friendly option compared to other appreciating classics. At the extreme end, though, the market gets wild. The highest recorded W124 sale was $885,000 for a 1991 300CE 24 6.0 AMG Hammer widebody in March 2023. Seventh, the 190E 2.316, the Cosworth, built from 1984 to 1993, averaging about $31,000. This is the car that was supposed to conquer rallying. Mercedes tapped Cosworth Engineering to develop a 16-valve cylinder head for the 2.3-liter four-cylinder, creating an engine that screamed to 7,000 RPM and produced 185 horsepower, 167 in U.S. trim. Combined with a 5-speed get-drag gearbox featuring a distinctive dogleg first gear, revised suspension, a limited slip differential, and that unmistakable rear wing, the 190E Cosworth was a serious machine. Here's the twist. By the time Cosworth delivered the engine, Audi had unleashed the Quattro, and its all-wheel drive system was simply too dominant for any rear-wheel drive rally car to compete. So Mercedes pivoted. They took the Cosworth engine to the DTM, the German Touring Car Championship, which required race cars to be based on production vehicles. Klaus Ludwig, one of Germany's most celebrated touring car drivers, wheeled the 190E Evo 2 to championship glory in the DTM, and those victories are inseparable from the car's legend today. Suddenly, Mercedes needed to sell these cars to the public, and a homologation legend was born. The direct rival in period was the BMW 3 E30, another four-cylinder homologation special built for the same DTM regulations. And the 190E Cosworth story only makes sense when you understand that rivalry. Two legendary cars, born from the same rulebook, still fighting for collector dollars 40 years later. Haggerty currently values a number one condition example at about $40,000, with number two condition cars at $27,000. What's particularly striking is the demographic driving demand. Millennials now comprise 42% of Haggerty insurance quotes for the 190E Cosworth. Over the last 12 months, average sale prices jumped 27%, compared to just 8% for the broader classic car market. This one still has room to grow. The holy grail is the 190E 2.516 Evolution 2, essentially the race-ready version. One sold for $544,000 in November 2023. As Haggerty's site director Jack Baruth noted, the dogleg gearbox was fantastic for the high-revving four-cylinder. When you needed second gear, it was easy to get to. And eighth, the W1113 Pagoda SL, built from 1963 to 1971, averaging $170,000. This is the aspirational one, the car at the top of the mountain. The W1113 earned its nickname from that distinctive concave removable hardtop, a design patented by safety engineer Bela Bereni and styled by Paul Brock, whose concave roofline drew immediate comparisons to a Japanese pagoda temple. Bereni's contribution is worth pausing on. He was one of the most prolific automotive safety inventors in history, and the pagoda's hardtop wasn't just beautiful, it was structurally engineered to protect occupants in a rollover. The over-engineered reputation of classic Mercedes starts, in many ways, with people like Bereni. The design language itself was shaped under the direction of Friedrich Geiger, head of styling at the time, making the W113 a product of one of the most talented design and engineering teams ever assembled under one roof. Produced in 3 variants, the 230 SL, 250 SL, and 280 SL, just 48,913 were built across an 8-year run, with the 280 SL being the most desirable at roughly 23,885 units. The Pagoda has always been glamorous. When new, it cost twice as much as a Jaguar E-Type. Celebrity owners in period included Charlton Heston and John Lennon, and the modern roster includes John Travolta, David Coulthard, and Kate Moss. Prices range from about $45,000 for projects up to $260,000 for pristine examples. The all-time auction record was an almost incomprehensible $20.2 million for a 1971 280 SL in January 2026. That's obviously a statistical outlier, but it tells you something about the auction reverence this car commands. The buying advice for Pagodas is universal and worth repeating. Buy the best you can afford. Don't ignore the sportier manual, 230. Top examples of each model command similar prices. A good Pagoda will reward you with decades of service. Watch out, though, for tarted-up rusty cars hidden behind new sill covers and badly fitted front wings, neglected running gear, and a missing hardtop. So there they are, 8 classic Mercedes models that still represent genuine value in today's market, from a $12,000 W123 sedan to a 6-figure Pagoda. What ties them all together is something increasingly hard to find in modern cars, a kind of mechanical honesty. These were machines built by engineers who believed that doing something right the first time was cheaper than doing it twice. Over-engineering wasn't a marketing buzzword, it was a philosophy. The classic Mercedes market is firming up across the board. Younger buyers are entering in force. Analog-era luxury is growing more desirable by the year, and the current tariff landscape is making imported alternatives more expensive. If there was ever a time to stop browsing and start buying, it's now. Because the truth about these cars hasn't changed in 40 years. Buy a good one, maintain it properly, and it will outlast nearly everything else on the road. That's not nostalgia. That's great engineering.